Does every single time you have sex with a woman require consent?
Well, I would say implicitly, by definition, would be consensual. If it's not, then it's rape.
So then every instance of sex would require consent?
Correct.
Okay. So if a husband wakes up in the morning and he has a boner and he leans over and starts banging his wife while she's asleep, is he?
Yes.
He is. Why is he doing that? Because he's horny?
I think because he assumes he has consent.
Yeah, so he's horny. So therefore, if it is the case that he's still her, even if he assumes he has consent and does not, that he's her because he's horny, right?
No, I don't think that he thinks he's her.
Doesn't, but that has nothing to do with the fact of the matter. You said that men do not grape.
The motivation behind grape is not that they're horny.
That's definitely his motivation behind that.
No, because he doesn't think he's her.
Why would it matter whether he thinks he's doing that or not?
Because that determines the motivation, right?
You're saying that men have to think that they're doing the act in order for them to be motivated to do the act?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that men don't commit unknowingly.
Okay, so this guy is his wife, which, by the way, means that I've my wife I don't know how many times.
That's a weird thing to admit.
No, I'm fine with it. Like, if
you're fine saying that you've your wife?
Yeah, if you think that me rolling over in the morning and she's asleep and waking her up with his,
well, I mean,
fine with it.
She's unconscious.
She's asleep for sure.
That's unconscious, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If she had too much to drink and passed out.
Yeah, we've done that too when we're both drunk. Yeah.
Well, I mean, where she passed out.
Yeah. She's also me by this metric too. She's woken me up with. Well, I didn't consent.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying here. Are you saying that you've raped your wife while she's been passed out?
I'm saying while my wife has been sleeping, I've woken her up with many times, and vice versa. So did we each other?
By definition, yeah.
Yeah. So we're both. She me sometimes. I her sometimes.
I think forced penetration is still
a little here, a little there. She a little. I a little.
That's weird.
We all do a little bit of thing.
Why?
Totally not weird, by the way. I'm just gonna say this is the norm. What's that?
Would you continue if she didn't wake up?
I don't know. Half the time I'm drunk, right?
So you don't know if you would continue?
No, I don't think I would continue if she didn't wake up.
Why?
I don't know. It's less fun.
It's right. So obviously you want your partner to be conscious, enthusiastic.
Yeah, but she wasn't conscious when we started.
I understand that,
yeah,
but
so there.
So if you then why not just wake her up?
Why do I need? I am waking her up with my.
Why not
I'm
just
waking her up
before
with my.
This is crazy.
Why is that crazy? Do you know how common it is that men and women wake each other up? Like a man will be woke up by his girlfriend. I don't care
how common it is.
Yeah. So
what does that have to do with anything?
What makes it crazy?
Because they're unconscious.
So? Do you know what implied consent is?
I do know what implied consent is.
There's an implied consent when you get married. It's implied that you're consenting to.
I don't think it's necessarily
Then do you have to bite the bullet that my wife has me any number of times?
I've told you. I already agree with you.
And you think that that's rational?
That it's rational to say what?
Do you think that I'm emotionally scarred because my wife me or rapes me?
No.
But is she emotionally scarred by me her?
I mean, I don't know. Probably not.
So then can just be a neutral act where it doesn't harm anybody?
I mean, I definitely do think it can harm in certain capacities, even if you're not consciously aware of it.
Yeah, but it's not harming anybody, right? So hang on, it can be morally neutral. I just want to make sure we're clear.
No.
What would make it morally bad? Demonstrate the harm. Who's being harmed?
Well, I think in some capacity, it would be the same harm that would come of someone engaging with someone who is like dead.
What?
I think the psychological, I think psychological aspect of wanting to
demonstrate it. Demonstrate that there's harm.
1 second.
Okay.
I think the psychological aspect of wanting to engage in intercourse with someone who is unconscious is highly harmful.
Demonstrate it.
Demonstrate what?
How? So if my wife, you just got done saying, if my wife wakes me up.
It's classified as what is like paraphilic.
Help me out with this. I'm totally asleep. okay, completely asleep, and I wake up, and my wife is giving me I wake up to that, okay? What's the harm? How have I been harmed? Tell me how this possibly is harmful to me.
I'm not saying it could be harmful to you.
So then is morally neutral sometimes.
No, I don't think it's morally neutral. Like, I don't think like
Then what's the
necessarily
immoral part
harm.
here?
I don't think harm necessarily has to come to the victim in order for it to be.
Then what would make this morally bad? What makes it morally
I told you
bad?
the psychology of wanting to engage in intercourse with someone who is unconscious.
Okay,
Why is it? Why is
you
it?
haven't explained how that's harmful or how that's bad.
One second. Would you engage with your wife if she were dead?
No, of course not.
Why?
Because her soul has left her body. She's not a person anymore.
Her soul has left her body.
She's not a human being anymore. It would be like dirt.
Can you give
right?
me like the secular position?
Why do I need to give you any other position?
How
than
is
that?
it? I think it's.
You need to give me from your position instead of obfuscating what actually makes
I'm
it
trying
immoral.
to give it an analogy.
Yeah, well, can you just tell me this? What makes it immoral for my wife to wake me up with what makes that immoral? By the way, have you ever woken your ex-husband? Do you ever wake him up like that?
No.
Never. Never happened once?
Not that I. No.
No? All right. But you do realize this is very common, right?
Sure. Yes.
And so just people are just commonly each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of instances where it happens where people don't think they are someone.
So
That's a part of like miscommunication theory.
okay. I just want to make sure I get the correct or the answer to this question correct. What is the actual harm? And demonstrate it for me logically, please. Or the immorality. Why is it immoral for my wife to do that to me?
Well, I mean, obviously, if we're talking about consent, I think the basis for that is the Fry's model, which is freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. And so obviously it doesn't meet certain aspects of those criteria.
Why is that immoral?
I
though?
mean,
I like it. I like it when she does that. What is immoral about her doing that? I want her to do that. I'm not conscious at the time. That's true. But I'm very enthusiastic that I want to wake up that way. Very enthusiastic about it.
Again, I think pleasuring someone who is unconscious is psychologically concerning.
I'm sorry about your mind state of concern. That's very Karen-ish of you, but can you tell me why it's immoral?
It's very Karen-ish.
It's very your concern's very Karen-ish, but why is it immoral?
I would place it under like a paraphilic behavior.
So all of the men out there whose wives have woken them up with, all of those women are
Paraphilic.
paraphilic.
I think the act itself.
They want to have sex with dead. They want to have sex with dead people.
I mean, paraphilic is just defined as like atypical preferences, and yeah, to like.
Yeah, but you were saying
want
it was
to have sex with someone who's.
You were saying it was necrophilia.
Well,
earlier.
necrophilia falls under paraphilic.
Okay,
so does like pedophiles.
So there's necrophilia. So you think that there's tons and tons of women out there who are necrophiles?
there are obviously like pedophiles and like necrophilia are two different things.
Do you agree
Paraphilic
with me
just means atypical
Yeah.
desires.
Do you agree
Like
with me?
I would classify kink under that.
Do you agree with me that tons and tons and tons of women likely wake their man up with some sort of sexual
I already
favor?
did.
Yeah. So
Like
then,
asked and answered.
So then is that they're kind of necrophiles?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, I don't understand what you're saying. It can't be. By the way, that doesn't make any sense. It can't be uncommon if it's common.
Well, it's if we're talking about like the experience of like atypical behaviors, then yes, engaging with someone who is unconscious
Is common.
is an atypical.
It's not atypical if you're saying it's common. That would be typical.
I mean, in terms of like a common occurrence, sure, but in terms of like a common outcome of intercourse, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry.
I think it's very typical.
You commonly start intercourse unconscious.
That's not what I said. I said it's very typical to do it, though. So, like, I don't typically eat gourmet caviar, but you would agree with me that it is typical that people do eat gourmet. It's like a typical behavior. You wouldn't say it's atypical to eat gourmet caviar, would you?
Again, just because something is common doesn't mean it's typical.
What does typical mean?
So I think like we could talk about frequency.
Well, let's
of
just make
things.
sure we get this right. What does typical
I'm
mean?
trying to.
I just want to make sure I know what typical means.
Sure, one second. I think we can talk about things happening in common frequency.
Okay.
But in terms of how often things happen outside of that frequency is going to make it like, so 1% of 4 million is going to be a large number. So we could say it's common. But in terms of looking at it in a percentage, it's only 1%, so it's atypical.
Okay, so I don't understand how, when we're talking about behavior,
I would say it's atypical.
What is it? Okay, then what threshold does it need to meet to become atypical or for behavior, like percentage-wise?
I don't know.
So then how do you know what's atypical?
I would just say the classification. Do you think most people, when they have sex, are doing so unconscious? So like with an unconscious
That's not
person?
what I said. No.
So that's my threshold.
Okay, well then, do you think that most people have missionary style or doggy style most
I
of the
have no
time?
idea.
What, if you had to guess? Because would that make doggy style atypical?
Well, no, because again, we're talking about percentages.
Right. So then I would need to know what is the percentage before it becomes atypical.
I
Don't know.
don't know.
Yeah. So then you can't really make the claim it's atypical.
Well, then how can we make the claim that anything is atypical?
Good question. I didn't make the claim it's atypical.
So
I
you
said
don't
it's
you don't think
typical.
like paraphilic desires exist?
Yeah, I think that we can definitely make claims to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, but when I guess the delineation here we're talking about is just typical versus not typical. I think that it's if you're talking about what is common,
Yeah.
I think it's super common that this happens all the time.
In terms of volume or in terms of percentage?
Both. Yeah, I think it's very common.
So you think this
So I
is
would
like
say
50% of sexual interactions?
No, but I think that 50% of people have had this interaction.
But I'm asking in terms of if we were to classify all interactions, would this be a common where people start off intercourse with one partner unconscious?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
it's not.
that's-
It's not going
that's
to
what
be
I'm
something.
saying.
It's not going to be. But that doesn't make it not common. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're quibbling now. Like we're saying the same thing,
I hope we are.
but maybe we can semantically. Maybe we can semantically get here.
I mean, why would? Okay, yeah, you already answered.
Because I'm horny. That's why I do it,
Well,
and I enjoy it. I enjoy. I enjoy it.
having with someone unconscious.
My wife, yeah. Yeah, I like it waking her up that way.
But you said if she didn't wake up, you would stop.
I know she does sometimes. She's like,
I don't.
she's like, ah. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And she's like, okay. I know. Yeah. She's like she can't believe this is happening. I've really shocked her. And then she just she's okay with it. Is that wild? Am I?
I think without having some form of like express consent, then yeah.
Yeah. Damn, I do this all the time.